They say every house has a personality. I flip houses for a living, so I know that's just a nice way of saying every house has problems. Rot, termites, bad wiring. I've seen it all. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in physics and blueprints. But in 2019, I bought a foreclosure in upstate New York that taught me that sometimes the blueprints lie. And sometimes a room isn't sealed up to keep people out. It's sealed up to keep something in. It was a beautiful Victorian, 3 stories, wraparound porch. I got it for a steal because the previous owner had vanished, just walked away in the middle of dinner apparently. I was working on the 2nd floor. It was supposed to be a 4-bedroom layout. I walked the perimeter outside before I started. I counted the windows. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 windows on the north face of the house. I went inside to the 2nd floor. 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. I frowned. I walked the hallway again. Bedroom 1, bathroom, bedroom 2, bedroom 3. Where was the 4th room? I went back outside. I counted the windows again. Definitely 4. I went back inside. I measured the hallway. According to the tape measure, there was a 6-foot gap between the closet of the master bedroom and the wall of the guest room. A 6-foot void. Dead space. Okay, I muttered. Hidden storage. Maybe a servant's corridor. I grabbed my sledgehammer. I tapped the wall in the hallway. Hollow. No studs. Just drywall over air. I decided to open it up. It would add square footage to the house. Profit. I swung the hammer. A puff of air hit my face. It smelled stale. Not like rot, like old perfume, lavender and dust. I cleared the debris. I shined my flashlight into the hole. It wasn't a closet. It wasn't a corridor. It was a door. An oak door, painted black, complete with a crystal knob. It had been drywalled over. I reached through the hole and turned the knob. It wasn't locked. I stepped inside. It was a room, a small, narrow bedroom. And there it was, the 4th window. But the window was painted black. Not the glass. The entire frame and glass had been painted over with thick black tar. No light came in. I shined my flashlight around. The room was furnished. There was a single wooden chair in the center of the room and a small table. On the table was a notebook, and facing the chair was a mirror, a full-length standing mirror. I walked over to the table. I picked up the notebook. The dust was thick. I blew it off. I opened it. The pages were covered in frantic handwriting. Day 1, it is quiet. Day 4, I can hear it breathing. Day 10, it only moves when I look in the mirror. I frowned. Squatter, I whispered. Some crazy squatter lived in here. I looked at the mirror. It was old silver glass, tarnished at the edges. I looked at my reflection. Just a guy covered in drywall dust holding a flashlight. I turned to leave. I was going to tear this room out, knock down the walls. But as I turned, I heard a sound. I spun around. The chair, the wooden chair in the center of the room, had rotated. When I came in, it was facing the mirror. Now, it was facing me. I froze. Drafts, I said aloud. Just air pressure from opening the door. I backed out of the room. I grabbed a roll of construction plastic and taped over the hole I had made. I needed a break. I needed fresh air. I went downstairs to the kitchen to eat my lunch. I sat there, eating a sandwich, trying to rationalize the chair. Then I heard footsteps. Someone was walking in the hidden room. I grabbed my hammer. "Hey," I yelled, "this is private property." I ran up the stairs. I got to the hallway. The plastic sheet I had taped over the hole, it was ripped, shredded. It was flapping in a breeze, but the breeze wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from the hidden room. The air blowing out was freezing cold. I shined my light through the shredded plastic. "Come out," I yelled. I stepped back into the room. The chair was gone. The table was gone.
The room was empty, except for the mirror. The mirror was still there, but now the black paint on the window was peeling. I walked over to the window. I scraped a bit of the tar off with my fingernail. I made a hole the size of a coin. I looked out. It was daytime. I should have seen the front yard, the oak tree, the street. I looked through the hole. I saw nothing. Not darkness. Nothing. A gray, swirling void. No trees, no sky, no ground. I stepped back. What is this? I looked at the mirror again. In the reflection, I saw myself. I saw the room. But in the reflection, the window wasn't painted black. In the mirror, the window was clear. And standing outside the window, looking in, was a face. It was huge. It filled the entire window frame, a pale, giant face with no eyes, just smooth skin, and a mouth filled with needle teeth. It was watching the reflection of the room. I spun around to look at the real window. The tar was bubbling. It was melting. Something hot was pressing against the glass from the outside. I ran. I ran out of the room. I ran down the hall. But the hallway was longer. I ran past the master bedroom, past the bathroom, but the stairs weren't there. The hallway just kept going, stretching out into darkness. I stopped. I was panting. I looked back. The door to the hidden room was open, and standing in the doorway was the chair. It was inching toward me. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. It was moving on its own, jerking forward across the floorboards. And sitting in the chair, it was the notebook. But the notebook was open, and the pages were turning. Flip, flip, flip. I turned and ran blindly into the dark hallway. I didn't care about the stairs. I just needed to get away from that room. I smashed through a window at the end of the hall. I fell onto the porch roof. I rolled off and hit the lawn. I scrambled to my feet. I looked up at the house. It looked normal. A quiet Victorian house in the sunlight. I looked at the second floor. 1, 2, 3. 3 windows. The fourth window, the one I had found, was gone. The siding was smooth. There was no trace of it. I left my tools. I left my truck. I walked to the neighbor's house and called a cab. I never went back. I let the bank foreclose on it again. But here is the thing that haunts me. I kept the notebook. I grabbed it off the table before I ran out the first time. No, I didn't. Wait. I checked my pockets in the cab. The notebook was in my pocket. I opened it to the last page. The ink was wet. It read, "He found the door. He let the draft in. Now the house can breathe." And below that, in jagged letters, "Room 5 under construction." I live in a studio apartment now. Concrete walls, no hallways, no extra rooms. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I see a door in my wall that wasn't there when I went to sleep, and I can hear the sound of a wooden chair scraping across the floor, coming closer to my bed.